Hello and welcome. I'm Nadira Tudor, and during this session, we'll be focusing on gearing up for a manufacturing renaissance. The key areas that we'll be looking into are how digital manufacturing can be accelerated and made accessible to all countries, as it's clear that manufacturing is crucial to combating the crisis. How can we strike a balance between the resilience of the manufacturing sector and the framework of social prosperity? How are industries responding to challenges in relation to upskilling and reskilling the workforce? Lots and lots of issues that we're going to cover. And joining me for the session is Mr. Haolin Zhao, Secretary General ITU, and Mr. Yong, Director General UNIDO. Thank you both for joining me today. I think we'll start with reminding what the UN's Sustainable Development Goals are. Let's start with you, Mr. Yong.
Thank you very much. The UN developed the Sustainable Development Goal with 17 goals. Of course, the final destination is end the poverty, extreme poverty in particular. But through the different goals, we could see that they are interwoven, interconnected. But among those, one of the development goal is SDG Goal 9. That is infrastructure, manufacturing, and industrial development and innovation. The three key letters. But main focus is on the industrial development. Should be inclusive and sustainable. And of course, it is connected to energy, water, women, poverty reduction. So industrial development certainly connected to new industrial revolution. Technology, especially the COVID-19, gave us the opportunity to rethink about the new technologies could actually help recover from the COVID-19 crisis. So SDG goal is a top framework for us to work at, but the 17 goals is for the international community to work as a partnership. But SDG Goal 9 is solely for UNIDO. We're focusing on the inclusive and sustainable industrialization and innovation infrastructure. So those are the framework for UNIDO to work together with international community. Of course, ITU as an organization, we really would like to work together as a partner for us to move ahead with the SDG agenda.
Yeah, Mr. Yong, I mean, if we look at obviously the unprecedented world that we're living in now, and you look at that specific goal that you've just talked about, there were problems before, or it wouldn't have been a goal. And COVID-19 has had a mixed impact, don't you think? It's slowed some areas, it's reversed stuff, it's accelerated others. How do you think we are doing or were doing pre-pandemic and during the world that we're living in now?
Of course, COVID-19 is a pandemic. We call it a crisis. Lots of sufferings, not a human being, but also global economy. And at the same time, I believe that it's not only one country, two countries. It's a global phenomenon. So it's a big challenge for human being and a global community. So now we are working to overcome this kind of pandemic crisis caused us lots of challenges. We developed the strategy as a UN system. We developed the pandemic crisis response framework. But UNIDO, as one of the agencies, we adapt to that situation and create the same response. And of course, we start as a containment and also adapt to the new situation and recover, rebuild, and the transformation of the economy. That is what we are doing. Of course, this is a very challenging process. We are working together with lots of innovative ways. If I have time, I would like to elaborate a little bit detail later on. But this is a big challenge for international community. But now look at the international, we are responding to that crisis very cooperatively.
Yeah, Mr. Joao, I'll bring you in now. Mr. Yong's just said, the collaboration part is extremely important. And we have seen an increase in rapid flow of ideas, science race to understand the virus and seek solutions. But is it true that only liberal democracies are already well advanced into 4IR?
Yeah, we talk about a 4IR. And then 4IR is definitely, try to mobilize everybody to move into information society. The 4IR is not the same as 3, 2, or 1. So that with this in mind, we know that with this COVID-19, forced the entire human beings now get into the information society. And then, we realize that the ICT technologies and new technologies such as broadband connections, cloud computing, data communication with confidence with security, and Internet of Things, everything now is suddenly coming to everybody. So this is something that we are at the position now that the importance of ICT for our society, for our human society, is more important than ever. We had noted. And here, I should also like to remind us the fact that when we talk about digitalization, we talk about information society, and only this be beneficial to people if they are connected. And today, still half population not connected yet. So for these people, their the future should be also our future, that we have to bring these people coming to the stage to be also connected, to enjoy the new technologies, new ICT services, so that they come together with us. And here, this partnership is absolutely important. Absolutely important.
And that's really key. You mentioned the word connected. The world has to be connected. And as you rightly pointed out, that there are many areas of the world that aren't connected. It's a real challenge. Yeah, what role will digitalization and the ICT sector have to play in that international, I'm calling it reconstruction now. Some of it wasn't constructed at all, but we're looking at a reconstructed effort. How can that digital divide be tackled globally?
Yes, this is a real challenge to all of us. Our Secretary General, Guterres, at his speech of the United Nations in mid of June, to declare that he would like to see by 2030, when we achieve our goal of SDGs, everybody should be connected with affordable prices. So this is a real challenge. I think the same question was posed to me last year at our IT Telecom in September in Budapest. And I hesitated to say that we could have everybody connected. Why? Because to connect everybody 2030, we have to understand where we are today. Today, we still have more than 46% of the population not connected online yet. While over the last 2 years, the improvement of connectivity of broadband connection is slowing down. 2018, we reached the goal about 52%, and 2019, only 2%. So if you remain 46%, you divide it by 2, you need 23 years. This is a mathematical calculation. If you think those are not connected yet, are in the poor area, in the remote area, and you cannot just use the same working method, the same strategy to bring these people online with the budget that you consider. But even so, we already know that for least developing countries, 48 we have, most of them in Africa, also in Asia Pacific, the connectivity is less than 20%. And to double them, you need enormous investment. Then that Africa is also much below the average. And we also have some calculations. Someone studied and they give calculation to connect these Africa people, double the connectivity from today 2019 to 2020 to 2021. We need at least $9 billion US. And someone further said that to connect everybody online by 2030, we need $100 billion. This is a mathematical calculation. Huh? I'm really doubtful whether even you have this money, you will be able to reach this goal. But still, even for this money, we have to find this money. So that is the problem. So
well, it is the problem. I'd like to jump in there, Mr. Zhao. You mentioned that you've been having this conversation. I remember having this exact conversation last year at GMIS as well. It was a problem then. But surely we can argue, and I'll bring Mr. Yong in because I want him to respond to this. Surely we can argue what we've seen with the onset of this pandemic and the crisis that we're living in globally. You could argue that regimes of every character have actually withdrawn into intellectual protectionism. We look at the USA, we look at Russia, we look at China, the UK. How on earth is that challenge of finding that money, working together, when those countries are reacting, you could say in the opposite way? How is it going to happen?
Yeah, I see that you're talking about this kind of new atmosphere of country relationship for the protections, that nationalism or some others. But there is one thing I noted so far, that everybody consider it's necessary, it's obligation, it's our responsibility to bring those not connected be connected. So this is, I would say that it's a common goal. Then we don't really want to go to detail what the political system, economic system you have. We just put this on the table to ask our politicians, our policymakers, regulators, our industry leaders, how can we do together better to bring these people online? So that is, now as Secretary General, I put the 4 I's as my agenda. 4 I's, first one is infrastructure. Second, investment. Third one, innovation. Last one, inclusiveness, which means infrastructure is absolutely important for us, that we still have a big digital divide. And then even within those developed areas, you don't see everywhere equally connected, equally. And I can tell you, I'm in Geneva. My home has not been connected with the optical fiber yet. And you are in UAE, you may have these kind of things already there. But for me, this is the reality. So to connect everybody with latest technologies, we need to extend our infrastructure. Infrastructure, go to the poor area to connect people not connected yet. Infrastructure to be upgraded with the new technology, new advances technologies such as 5G, cloud computing, AI, artificial intelligence. All this we need a better infrastructure. So we need money. And the money, where we get the money, as I just mentioned a few. And to get this money, there's no way you can do that, except that you have to promote the public-private partnership. And in ICT field, we know that the majority of investment are coming from private sector. Therefore, we all have to go together to create a good environment to attract the investment to this ICT. So that is now I'm very pleased with this COVID-19 pandemic. People realize how important the ICT is, but still, how can we do the business better? There's another challenges I talked a lot. For example, in our field, we promote the broadband connectivity for a long time. But the progress of fixed line broadband connection is moving very slowly. And then you find also a lot of additional.
Sorry, Mr. Zhao, I'm going to jump in because I think I want Mr. Yong to answer some of your questions actually. Mr. Zhao has mentioned that nothing's going to move without the money. So from your perspective, Mr. Yong, and I put it to you again, how are these governments going to work together when we're seeing a kind of protectionism? Are they going to be able to form those partnerships that Mr. Zhao is saying are absolutely essential and necessary?
I do not say that without the money cannot move. Or put it the other way, if you cannot have money, you cannot move. Money is absolutely important. We need investment, but investment is not only by money. by means also intellectuals, new innovative ideas to do businesses, partnerships, everything. That is the whole package. Of course, money is very important. You cannot go without money. But then the whole strategy to invest, that we really have to look at that.
Mr. Yong, is your strategy going to work? You can answer, Zhao.
Yeah, thank you very much, Nadira. I think two letters here. One is protectionism, and the second is money, also to deal with digitalization process. So, but protectionism is really an obstacle to the multilateralism, to the technology advancement, etc. And also, it will hurt the private sector to innovate. And this is something will stop the history rolling ahead. So we should stand together to fight against those protectionism, and also generate a kind of international standards, norms to move together with protection of the intellectual property, and let the global community under the framework of the science, technology, innovation. In such a case, we can move ahead. Second is regarding, of course, new technologies, manufacturing. COVID-19, we could see that the big majority of sectors actually suffering. The tourism, the restaurant, the service sector, and the manufacturing SMEs, also production lines, value chains being stopped. But one of the special feature, maybe when we look into the information of sector, we could see that IT sector, digitalization actually is not that kind of negatively impacted. And instead, it's actually get lots of benefit from the widely used application of the digital technologies. For instance, a virtual meeting is one of them, and also digital tracing the cases, and also the manufacturing, 3D printing manufacturing for medical equipment, etc. Lots of the digitalization process actually being developed. For instance, like trainings, like UNIDO programs, we apply those digital technology very widely. That is why we worked very closely with ITU. But here is not an issue that just money can do everything. I really agree with Ho-Lin Zhao that money is one of the issues. Without money, we cannot move. But without a good policy from government to start with a good program for digitalization process, policy, tax policy, financial policy, etc., the country will not move, because the infrastructure of the digitalization must be with the strong support from government. And the second is the private sector should be actively encouraged to be involved in the digital technology development. This is a very important process. And the international community also need to work together, particularly when we talking about the big gap between the advanced country and the developing country. Ho-Lin Zhao mentioned that. How to actually reduce the gap, let the gap being shrinking instead of expand. So we need to develop operations, policy support, a strategy to support the developing countries to adapt to the new situation. So that is why when we talk about the digital technology development, it's not solely one issue. It's a comprehensive package of the operational guideline roadmap. We would like to move ahead. UNIDO is working on that and connected the digital technology into our operation and a convening function. And also, like GMIS is one of example. We really connected to the new technology with all our member countries, especially advanced country and the developing country. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if we look at the digitalization of how people have had to work, particularly that it's affected their social lives, their personal lives. Obviously, people have been restricted in how much they can move, and they have turned to working online. But obviously, not all industries are able to do that. There are training issues in developing countries, certainly, even with the growth of digitization, and there will be implementation issues. Mr. Zhao, how do you think these are going to be tackled in?
Absolutely important. The digital skills, digital literacy is absolutely important. So that's the reason why ITU worked together with ILO to launch the skills for young people. And we started the project from Africa continent earlier this year already. So we worked all together. And here, I also like to draw attention to one fact. When we talked about new technology, new applications, this is absolutely important for our future. But there is something we have to recognize. These are not only from big guys. The small, medium-sized companies exist everywhere, in the developing countries, in even least developing countries, everywhere. They know technology. Actually, today, they know 5G, they know Internet of Things, they know digital money, they know everything. These young people are very intelligent, and they know the market. They know how to bring their community with new technologies. So these people can develop a lot of powerful solutions to connect the local community with new technologies to the international platform. So that we have to also try to encourage them to work together. And of course, here again, that partnership, we talked a lot, that we encourage the partnership between private and public, and also among the government authorities of different parts of the world, that to have, this kind of things be, mobilized in line with each other, will help us to reach our goal earlier. If we try to divide the areas, that is my business, that is your business, I think that will not work. So this one, I really want to, use this opportunity to highlight that, ITU, we work with UNIDO as well. We work with UNIDO under invitation of UNECE to have a 5G project in Africa continent, for example. And we have some other projects with, for example, with UNESCO to have e-learning, project to facilitate connecting schools. And we also recently worked together with UNICEF to launch a new project that we call that GIGA to connect the schools. And with industry joining us, we already had quite a number of, good projects in many developing countries. And, that we also encourage, again, the new way to work on the business. And in the past, up to now even, what happened? We, as Mr. Lee just highly appreciated the ICT development. That is true. But as I also mentioned, mainly this is invested by private sector. And in private sector, you also have different parts of the private sector. It's today in the ICT market, mainly invested by telecom operators. And then you have ISPs. And this industry group and the telecom operators, they have some kind of industry dispute. That is another problem we have to address. But to get everybody be together, that is one thing. And then you also note that in any particular country today, you have financial ministers, you have different ministries, and each ministry will get the proper part from financial minister for their ministry to develop their business. And today, most of them will use ICT to improve their efficiency, improve their productivity. And then they rely on the improvement from the current infrastructure. What is the current infrastructure? Now, in any particular country, you have 3 or 4 telecom operators. Each of them have their own network. And then each of the ministry, we have to do business with all this together. And the ministry, for example, ICT ministry, may not know what happened with agriculture ministry. And they have budgeted to do something with ICT to improve the agriculture productivity, to modernize their work in the agriculture. And this kind of thing, they rely on the new ICT technologies, but their developed based on this silo, requirement. If we now see the new way to work, the government put everybody together. Look at the investment, strategy for the ICT infrastructure, and then put everything, in the big and the higher point to look at the issue. Because in the end, the investment, no matter whether it's coming from which part of your partners, from east, from west, from north, or for the others, but in the end, it's in the country. In the end, we should consider this is a property of the country. You have profit, you have lost, then it's the country will profit or will suffer. So that one, government should now look at this issue differently. For example, for medical service, now with the pandemic, and I was invited. I'm very, very happy, very honored to be invited 2 times by G20 Minister of Health to join their meeting. It's the first time. If we don't have COVID-19, I don't know whether I will be invited or not. Which means what? Which means medical workers, medical system look for good support and services from ICT. And ICT is in the ICT industry, and IT for natural, that we are working with our ICT industry. So this is a way forward. I really appreciate that kind of development. I will encourage more our government to look at this issue, from a new angle, with lessons learned from COVID-19.
Mr. Yong, what's that new angle going to be? If we accept that the virus has accelerated the need for virtual cooperation in some areas, in many areas, then it's still relying on some of the basics that we've been discussing, infrastructure being one, very basics, but they're just not in place for much of the world. How is this going to happen? How are we going to move forward as a planet?
Yeah. Of course, this pandemic looks not easy to quickly go away. Of course, the international community need to work together to fight against this crisis. And of course, lots of issues could be connected to this process of the partnership cooperation internationally. However, one of the issues is pretty important for us to support is a new technology, fourth industrial revolution, bring about. We need to introducing those new technology, including digital ICT technologies, into our operations, into our partnership. I just give you a few examples of that. Now the country with pandemic, and also how to generate enough medical equipment to support this process fighting against the COVID-19. Digitalisation, digital industry, and also the technology will give us a big help and let people to know how that to avoid some cases, and also tracing the cases identified. This will be very, very useful for us to work with. And also the virtual conference will connect the people from the advanced country to the poor country, from the big city to the rural area. Those are also one of the features for us to move ahead with this process. And I just also would like to mention that we should bring back the manufacturing and let SME to start working, start production, manufacturing. This is so important for us. And now, of course, we would like to help them with some recoveries. New technology certainly will help them to move ahead with job creation. So another example is that lots of services, like financial services, e-commerce, value chain creation, and to help those individuals, the companies to move ahead, we need the digital infrastructure, digital connection. The e-commerce is one of that. so widely spread in China and also connected to the global community when the country really would like to join this process. I was invited to the BRICS for Minister of Industry and the Trade and discuss how that the digital technology could be used for e-commerce connected to the small, medium enterprises first, and also help the global technology advancement. But I also would like to mention that there's a big issue for us how to help the country to overcome the difficulties, especially least developed country. This group country need the support to not only just funding, policy support, and also operational support. This is one of the special area for UNIDO to work to support them. We published the book, handbook for pathway to the recovery from the COVID-19, help the guidance for micro, small, medium enterprises to recover. And we also share the information for them to actually get connected to the global process of this movement. We join the UN agencies to respond to the country with the need for support. And we repurpose of the project to include manufacturing of PPEs. Also, waste management, especially medical waste management, is also one of the special area. So talking about that, how to move ahead with this kind of recovery is a really big challenge. I believe strongly that this is an international partnership. Government need to be very clear, focusing how to save people's life and then bring the business back and support the most vulnerable group, like women and the youth, to get jobs, to get trained for the adaptation to the new situation. And private sector should play one of the critical role, bring the business back. And international financial institution with financial resources and civil society, academia, they also play different roles promoting this kind of strong partnership to bring back of the economic growth and the trade investment. Of course, we are now develop a very important strategy for country to support the country to develop industrial strategy. And it covers a wide range of the areas, agro and the business sector, energy, or so. But one of the special feature is that ICT development. I worked very closely with Holin Zhao and also regional commission like UNECA, etc., to support the country to develop a digital infrastructure. And this is just like highway, railway, airline. Without this digital infrastructure, new technologies could be run and virtual training could be developed, and then will reduce the difference between the advanced country and the poor country. So we are trying our best to support the country with the needs and to develop this kind of new strategy. So having said that, I believe this is one of the opportunity, not only just look at the challenge, this is a good opportunity for us to work together. Only by working together, we can achieve the success in dealing with this crisis. And of course, the crisis go away is not the end of the job. We need to still moving ahead with the 2030 development agenda, maybe after. The poverty reduction and also reduce the different gaps among the country and among the people is the final development goal. We really support it. We would like to work with our international partner, serving our member states better. Thank you.
Yeah, I I want to say that even before the current crisis, if you look at a report from 2017, the McKinsey Global Institute estimated that as many as 375 million workers, or 14% of the global workforce, would have to switch occupations or acquire new skills by 2030 because of automation and artificial intelligence. But of course, that report was done before the global crisis that we're in now. And very quickly, how do you think industries are responding to the challenges in relation to upskilling and reskilling the workforce with the intention of adopting those new technologies? Mr. Yong, yeah.
Oh, thank you. Of course, as we work with our member states, it's very clear the challenge is there, and we would like to see that how to support the country with increasing demands for new technology. Look at the African region and also Asia, middle income country, and Central Europe, etc. Exactly same. They would like to request UNIDO to support country with new technology, and new industrial revolution is a great opportunity. They believe, however, when we look at the country with the different needs, we will see the different challenges. One of the important issue is skilled labor and education, technology advancement, through the education and trainings. For instance, like Egypt, we help them develop the country strategy for industrial development, inclusive and sustainable industrial development. But one of the area is training, vocational training system for those young people and women to learn the skills for the digital manufacturing or digital usage. This is one of the example. We are copying that, spread that to the different country in Africa. Certainly, this is a very daunting task for us. But there's many of the ways to help them, like a virtual training system. We work with private sector first company with a vocational training system. But before with this kind of training, but now with a new technology, if a country with ICT basics, they can connect it to the computer. Those kind of training, visual reality training, they can have this kind of labs with a machine tool, and they can work on that instead of bring them to the real training center, which is too luxurious for the poor people, especially in developing countries. So this kind of technology will be very useful for us to develop those training for skilled labor, upgrade the skills for the people in the remote area, in the poor area. Those are just examples, but we have many other examples for that. For instance, agriculture, agro-industry, the remote area, how can they use a new technology to promote the production, manufacturing, raise the income, the drones to monitor the irrigation system, insects and disasters, and also we use a new technology for the country in Congo to monitor, to measure the timber or the cocoa production, etc. So lots of new technologies could be learned by those region, those people. It doesn't mean that the poor region, poor country will be always left behind. But the organizations like UNIDO, ITU, and Regional Commission, Development Institution are ready to support them. This is an important part of us to promote this kind of knowledge and support the countries. GMIS is one of the examples, a good forum for us to demonstrate this kind of support. Yeah.
Mr. Yong,
if I may, I would like to add one point. I agree with Mr. Lee for all these potential areas. We could increase our engagement with our community to encourage more jobs to be created. And with ICT move everywhere, you definitely see many new opportunities for new jobs. And we also noted that with the new ICT skills, that many young people, many poor people, could quickly get into a job market with their own ideas to create industry or self create. But on the other hand, there is a very, very important point. ITU has worked that with our sister organizations, partners for women. And women, according to our statistics, for ICT use, the women's usage of ICT, particularly broadband, is much lower than men. And then, that we also know that in many developing countries, in rural areas, you have a lot of women there. And the women and girls, that they are unfortunately left behind the men and boys. So ITU, worked with membership to create girls in ICT. Every year, the last Thursday of last week of April, we mobilize our members to celebrate this day to encourage more women and girls to go to ICT. And we also work with young women. We have developed equals, to encourage more women to come to ICT. And here, that it's still a long way for us to go. No matter how hard we tried already for years, we see the improvement is very limited. So that we need to work more. And if we cannot get women at least equally, powered by ICT with the men, I think that our digital goals, our SDG goals will not be achieved. So that one, we are very, very, working very hard to promote this campaign, and then of course to encourage young people to learn ICTs, also to training those aged people to use ICT is also very important. I can tell you, over this COVID-19, and our senior citizens suffered more, not only by the COVID-19, but also since they are confined at home and they don't know how to use e-commerce, how to order their goods from wherever, they suffer a lot. So this one, we also have to engage someone to try to help them with new ICT, capacity building for this group of people. So that is one of the reasons why I said in my 4 I's, inclusiveness. We have to include everybody in our campaign.
Well, Mr. Yong, you gave some great examples of what you think should happen, and you've outlined some success stories, and so have you, Mr. Zhao. I'm going to ask you both just one sentence where you can give me the key things that we've learned from responding to this global crisis that we can take or need to take for the future. Mr. Yong, start with you. One sentence.
One sentence. We need to work together to win this battle.
Mr. Zhao.
ICT is very important for our future. We need to work together to further promote ICT to get SDGs achieved in the next 10 years.
Well, this session is aimed to look at gearing up for a manufacturing renaissance. I can safely say that with my two guests here, Mr. Halin Zhao, Secretary General ITU, and Mr. Lee Yong, Director General UNIDO, I think we have some fantastic points there that we can take forward. And we will, I'm sure, in the years to come. I've been Nadia Tudor. Thank you for watching and getting involved.